In my prior videos, part 1 through 3, I talked about how Ryan, who entered the hospital on November 21st, 2021, was forced onto a drug against his consent, a drug with a known side effect of kidney toxicity, and was forced onto a ventilator on November 30th while having a normal 98% oxygen level. What followed from there was a lot of lies and manipulation coming from the medical staff, leaving me with the question, if they were not wanting Ryan to stay on something that he was improving on, if improving was not their goal, then what was? If the fear of losing Ryan was not the concern, then what were they afraid of losing? It was on this day that a nurse's aide came into Ryan's room and motioned for me to step closer to her and away from the camera that was above Ryan's bed. I approached her, and she tells me in a low voice,
Room 17 is suing for their right to try ivermectin.
I was wondering if she knew that I was in the process of filing an emergency hearing with the courts to do the same for Ryan, wondering if the hospital was putting her up to this conversation to fish out information. So I simply responded, "Oh, how is that going?"
Well, to be honest with you, the hospital administrators told us nurses to work to get them out faster.
Out faster? What does that mean, out faster? Like dead or alive faster? She then gave me a look and a shrug of her shoulders, like you didn't hear it from me. Chills ran up my spine and goosebumps on my arms. What was she telling me? I know what message she appeared to be giving, but is it true? Or is she just telling me that to scare me off from fighting for Ryan? Did the hospital maybe put her up to this to deter me from doing the same? The lawyer Ralph Laringo told me not to talk about our upcoming hearing, that they would learn of it soon enough. So I sat down beside my husband, placed my hands on him, and began to pray over him. I decided to put the thoughts of what I felt she was warning me out of my mind and keep my focus on my fight. However, this conversation would be brought up again days later and haunt me for the rest of my life. We will go over that in a much later episode. And just when you think life couldn't get any worse, this day would be another horrific day in my life. I was on the phone with my mom late into the night when we got the call from Dennis's brother to come down to Wyandotte Henry Ford Hospital pertaining to Dennis's health. Dennis is like a father to me, the only real dad I had known. He had been with my mom since I was 1 year old. While my mom and Dennis never married, they had been together for 41 years. I will go over what happened to him in another episode that I will dedicate just to him. I get to the hospital today to visit with Ryan, and I noticed he was making some facial expressions. He was trying to wake up. I began talking to him, and then Ryan opened his eyes. I said, "Ryan, can you raise your eyebrows up?" And he did. I said, "Ryan, I love you, and I am fighting for you." Ryan raised his eyebrows up again, as though saying it back, "I love you." I said, "Ryan, can I ask you some questions? Can you raise your eyebrows up for yes and down for no, please?" And he raised them up. Then he put his tongue to his vent that was inside his mouth to his lungs, and he shook his head in angry no, with his eyebrows down and a frown face. And he was trying to tell me, "I do not want this. I did not consent." I said, "Ryan, I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?" And just as I said that, his nurse that was leaving his room turned around and quickly came back to his monitor and said, "It looks like we got to make him more comfortable. I am just going to up this a little bit." And it took seconds. Ryan was back fully sedated. What just happened? I was talking with my husband. Then I thought, it's okay, I will do this again tomorrow. But I didn't know that my moment of talking to Ryan was done, because from that time on, they would never try to wean Ryan off the sedation enough to allow him to talk again. The emergency hearing was filed with our local court. It was also after this was filed that staff began to talk like they were almost giving up on Ryan getting better, as though they were defeated. When we had the hearing, the attorney gave great examples of how many patients have been saved by the use of ivermectin. He gave examples of patients on the ventilator who were given this drug and quickly came off the vent and made a full recovery. He fought hard for Ryan's rights.
Presented families of individuals who were in hospitals. They were begging the hospitals to give ivermectin. And by the way, that's the one that works better throughout the course. Hydroxychloroquine really, needs to be given pretty early on. But regardless, and I know it absolutely works. There are thousands, probably tens of thousands of stories where it absolutely works. But they had to sue the hospitals.
Right.
And this attorney, these are the exact figures. I'm hoping to have a hearing with this guy, but basically, let's say he sued 200 families. It's about the right numbers. Half of the lawsuits he won, half he lost. Of the 100 or so that he won, so the hospitals were forced to administer ivermectin and these other things, only 2 or 3 people died.
Yeah.
Of the 100 or so that he lost, they all died.
The doctor who wrote the script for ivermectin for Ryan was also there and available as a witness, but the judge never spoke to myself or the doctor. In the end, the judge ruled that he had to protect the doctors in the hospital and allow them to make the best decision for Ryan and his needs. So not Ryan's doctor in the room, not me as Ryan's power of attorney, not even Ryan himself had as much rights as the doctors did over his body. So I wonder, where do Ryan's own rights come into place?
July 28, 2021, my father walked into the emergency room with COVID-19. For weeks, my family and I sat by as we watched the standard of procedure bring him closer and closer to death. And even when we were told there was no other options, all of our requests for any alternative treatments were continuously denied.
You know what? The standard of care, he should have been vaccinated as well.
Well, that's what you guys heard Carlton tell us too.
We'll leave it at that. We're doing the best we can.
I assure you. I just think we was denied treatment when we're begging you to try this on our father.
I understand.
But do you really?
I do.
I feel like I might start publishing this information to my platform.
Despite being shot down repeatedly by the hospital, I was able to connect with several experts around the world who encouraged me to keep fighting for the treatments that our government is suppressing. After weeks of nonstop research, I gained access to the real-time meta-analysis on the drug ivermectin, which now includes 81 studies, 61 of them peer-reviewed, and 33 randomized controlled trials. The drug is FDA approved and has been used safely in humans for decades around the world. In 2015, it won the Nobel Prize. It is cheap and widely available, and it has far more science behind it than any other drug we are using to treat COVID, yet for some reason the FDA is blocking the hospitals from filling prescriptions, and the mainstream media is misleading people into thinking it's not safe for humans. When I first learned this, I couldn't believe it myself either. How could there be a drug with so much science behind it and I'm being told there's no other options? So I looked up the email format for a hospital employee and sent the studies to all of my dad's doctors. I also printed them out and brought them in person and demanded my dad the right to try. On August 13th, he became the first person that they ever treated with ivermectin. He received 12 milligrams a day for 5 days, and within 2 weeks he was on the road to the miraculous recovery that we all witnessed. Yet for some reason, when the family in the room next door was begging to try, they were told they weren't allowed because the FDA put a ban on it September 2nd. We are 2 years into this pandemic. Why is the government still forcing dangerous treatments like remdesivir and banning the safe and effective ones? Not only are they banning them, but any doctor or scientist who speaks about them is being censored and deplatformed. Our medical professionals who are risking their lives to save us are being forced to watch patients die while there's a safe and effective treatment in the pharmacy right downstairs. They are understaffed and overworked because we fired our heroes over a vaccine that clearly doesn't stop the spread. I know a lot of people will find this shocking and offensive, but I just can't go on enjoying our victory without sharing the truth with the world. Over the last few months, I've worked directly with dozens of families who are experiencing the same problems in hospitals around the country.
So we've had 7 doses of ivermectin. She has dramatically increased. This is how we saved my wife, Alyssa Goldstein.
This isn't a conspiracy. This is actually happening, and it could be you or your loved one next. Over 20 countries have already adopted ivermectin as treatment. This is the United States of America. Why are people on their deathbeds being denied access to life-saving treatments? Why does it feel like the people who are supposed to be protecting us are purposely trying to cover up the medicine that works?
So why will you not commit to sharing everything open, unredacted with this Congress?
So here's an example.
Dr. Fauci, this hearing is critically important to the American people. There are millions of people infected with the COVID virus. Right. It is impacting every part of our economy. Every family is asking for answers to critical questions.
Leaked documents from the Department of Defense state that this virus was created by the American EcoHealth Alliance at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and was then intentionally concealed when the virus managed to escape the lab and take the lives of millions. They also state that ivermectin was identified as a cure back in April of 2020 for all phases of the disease, yet it is still impossible for us to get. Why? Is it because no money can be made off this cheap off-patent drug? Pfizer's expected to bring in $54 billion this year, and they are also responsible for the largest healthcare fraud settlement in U.S. history. Would a cheap and effective treatment get in the way of Big Pharma's profits? Have the people in power really been truthful?
Biden wants to inoculate as many people as possible. The drug companies, the food companies, the vaccine companies, they pay us hundreds of millions of dollars a year to hire and keep the reviewers to approve their product.
And looking back today, what would that judge say now? What doctor would get the final say, as we would later come to find doctors inside the hospital that wanted to save Ryan with other drugs? Which doctors would he protect over the patient then? Would love to know his response now today, as my husband's blood is also on his hands. I was now on a mission on my own to find doctors willing to fight for Ryan's life and listen to our request. We do not want to be on this protocol. Why are they forcing this? And who can help my husband try something else? Who will listen to us? May God help me defend my husband. I place my hands on my husband's head daily, asking for our protection, and for God to please lead me to someone who will listen and help me fight for my husband. Follow my page starting with part 1 as I begin to take you on my journey from the last 3 years, and by the end you can decide, was this hospital guilty of negligence or solicitation to commit murder?
I will fight for you. I will see you through. By the power of my spirit